You really think this is Top Gun? That's what the colonel said loud enough for the entire hangar to hear. She didn't flinch, didn't answer, just climbed into the F-16 and took off. 30 minutes later, one jet was on fire, another pilot unconscious, and the formation falling apart. The only one still in control was the woman they tried to ignore. What she did next wasn't in any textbook, because sometimes the quietest person in the room is the only one ready when everything falls apart. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Denton Air Base sat low against the Nevada horizon. Dust curled around the fences, and the desert sun baked the concrete like it was trying to melt the past into the ground. This wasn't just another training base, it was the crucible, the final gate before real war. Captain Lawrence Shaw had already been through real war. 3 tours overseas, over 1,000 hours in the sky, 2 commendations for landing wounded aircraft under fire. She had led squadrons, flown through sandstorms, and pulled soldiers out of firefights with nothing but fuel fumes left in the tank. But none of that seemed to follow her here. At Denton, she was no one. No fanfare greeted her arrival, just a bunk number, a locker tag, and a single line on a clipboard, Captain L. Shaw, standby rotation only. That phrase said it all. She wouldn't fly unless someone else dropped out. The younger pilots didn't ask where she came from. They saw the lines at the corner of her eyes and the silence in her posture. To them, she was a ghost, a placeholder, someone who didn't belong in the room where futures were being written. Lauren didn't fight it. She showed up before dawn, stayed late after every sim run, recalibrated her own gear, and never missed a briefing, but her name never showed up on the mission board. Colonel Whitaker, the base commander, passed her in the hallways like she was a piece of equipment. He never said her name, never asked a question. He folded his arms during briefings, gave his nods to Brennan and Tran, and skipped her without blinking. She didn't mind the silence. She'd flown through worse storms than this. Still, she always slowed when she passed the row of F-16s in the hangar. There was something about them sleek, coiled, waiting. She had flown them before. Not many times, but enough to feel the weight of the fuselage in her ribs. The afterburner hum still echoed through her bones. And yet, at Denton, unless you were on the schedule, you were invisible. That morning, the air buzzed with something different. A congressional delegation was flying in, along with a general or two. The base was expected to perform literally. An aerial demonstration had been scheduled weeks in advance. Colonel Whitaker wanted perfection. That meant his usual 3, Lieutenant Brennan, cocky and loud, Lieutenant Tran, quiet but exact, and Major Steele, dependable as a stopwatch. Lauren wasn't listed. As usual, she was assigned to observation. She was already near the hangar, helmet in hand, visor clipped to her chest. When the call came in, Steele had twisted his ankle. Coming down the stairwell, simple, stupid, just enough to take him out of rotation. Panic rippled through the ground crew. Brennan swore under his breath. Whitaker paced like a man who hated improvising. They needed a third pilot. Nolan was out running diagnostics. Peterson didn't have F-16 clearance. Only one qualified pilot was standing there, fully suited, already prepped. Lauren didn't wait to be called. She walked toward jet number 3 with quiet steps, helmet under one arm, boots clicking softly on the concrete. Whitaker turned as she passed. He sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. You think this is Top Gun?" Brennan let out a dry laugh. A tech sergeant froze mid-step. Even the hangar doors seemed to pause. Lauren didn't flinch. She didn't answer. She just walked past them, climbed the ladder into the cockpit, and began her pre-flight checks like she'd done 1,000 times before. Not for show, not for pride. For the mission, the canopy sealed. The turbines roared to life. Flight Command gave the green light. And in minutes, 3 jets were lined up on the tarmac, Brennan on the right, Tran at the rear, and Lauren on the left wing. The afterburners flared, and they lifted clean into the Nevada sky. From the observation tower, a wall of brass and suits watched through thick glass. Whitaker's voice echoed through the comms. Lead is Brennan. Anchor is Lieutenant Tran. Left wing, Captain Shaw. She's new here. That was it. No mention of her record. No context. She was an afterthought. A name mumbled under breath. But Lauren didn't hear him. Or maybe she did and simply chose to ignore it. Her mind was locked into the sky. Altitude steady. HUD clean. Spacing tight. The F-16s flew in perfect delta formation, slicing through morning light. The observers below nodded. It was textbook on paper. Flawless. Brennan initiated the spiral maneuver first. Tran followed in rhythm. Lauren adjusted her vector by instinct, rolling perfectly into the arc. Sunlight flickered off her wings like a blade. Whitaker's voice came back. Smoother now. Tightest triangle we've flown this year. But Lauren didn't fly for praise. She wasn't there to be admired. She was there because this space between earth and heaven was where everything made sense. Where no one talked over her. No one looked past her. In the cockpit, the aircraft didn't care about politics. And yet, somewhere in the back of her HUD, a flicker appeared. Just for a moment. A disruption. A signal she didn't recognize. Not from base. Not from formation. Static. Then silence. Then a soft tone she didn't like at all. Her hand twitched near the throttle. A habit. A warning. Something was off. And in the next breath, everything would change. The flicker returned. This time, sharper. Lauren caught it at the edge of her HUD, just a blink of static across the radar overlay. No alert from the base. No flight path update. Just that faint, sour tone in her earpiece. Instinct told her what the instruments hadn't yet. Something didn't belong up there with them. Brennan, copy, did you see that blip? She asked calmly. Eyes fixed forward. What blip? His voice came back. Confident. Distracted. Everything's clear on my end. But it wasn't. Seconds later, his F-16 dipped just a fraction at first. Then again. Harder. Whoa, what the hell? Brennan snapped, yanking on his controls. His jet shuddered. Unstable. Out of sync. Lauren glanced left. The spacing broke. Tran's voice crackled in. You dropped altitude. 30 feet. No, I didn't, Brennan barked back. His jet jolted again, veering off axis. Then they saw it. A flash of white, a drone, civilian grade, zigzagging erratically into their formation. Too fast. Too close. Unauthorized. No one had cleared it. No one had seen it coming. Lauren reached for her flaps. Brennan tried to bank, but the drone struck first. A direct hit under his right wing. Not a large explosion, but enough. The jet spun, smoke trailing from its engine. Metal groaned. Systems failed. Brennan's voice crackled into chaos. I am losing control, hydraulics down. I can't stabilize. His signal faded. Panic crept into every syllable. Lauren dropped her altitude. Not protocol, just instinct. She angled hard to the right, pulling beneath his crippled jet. Her HUD screamed warnings, collision alerts, fuel stress, power strain. She silenced them all. Crow control. This is Falcon 3. Tran called from behind. We've got an emergency. Brennan's hit. Base didn't answer fast enough. Colonel Whitaker's voice finally broke in. Harsh. Rattled. Abort the demo. Pull them out. Now. Tran peeled off, his position too far to assist. Only Lauren was close enough. She watched Brennan's jet spin, smoke pouring from the fuselage. No landing gear. No steering. Just dead weight with a man inside. Brennan, she said, switching to direct override. Let go of the stick. Do not fight it. No reply. She imagined his hands locked on the controls, every muscle shaking, trying to save what couldn't be saved. Do it, she said again. I've got you. Still nothing. So she made the decision for him. Lauren dropped 10 more feet, matched his angle, lined herself beneath his descent path, not to stop the fall, that wasn't possible, but to guide it, to keep his wings level just long enough. Her eyes jumped from pitch angle to altitude to airspeed. Everything had to line up. She adjusted her stabilizers in half-second pulses. Her own jet groaned under the pressure, but she didn't pull away. From the observation tower, everything had gone silent. The general's team leaned forward. Radios crackled, but no one spoke. Whitaker stood frozen, mouth half open. The colonel, who never flinched, was now speechless. Lauren's F-16 slid into position like it had always belonged there, just beneath Brennan's failing jet. Smoke streaked their path like a wounded ribbon across the sky. Brennan's left wing trembled, then snapped. The broken wing fell away. The plane tilted, dangerously. Lauren flared left, rebalanced. Her stabilizer clipped the edge of Brennan's underside, just enough to jolt the aircraft back to level. Not perfect, not clean, but steady. Lauren Brennan's voice returned, barely audible, strained. She didn't answer. She was already moving them both into descent, 3,000 feet, still too high for error. She gripped the throttle, nudged her rudder left, guiding both planes together, one above the other, down a single invisible rail. Emergency crews had already scrambled on the tarmac. Fire trucks, foam cannons, ambulances, all waiting. But from where Lauren flew, they were still too far, too small. She stayed on Brennan's 6 until she saw his wheels kiss the asphalt. One bounce, two, a hard skid, then a halt smoke, but no flames. Only when his aircraft stopped rolling did she break away and begin her own descent. Her landing was clean, smooth, controlled. The engines wound down. Silence returned. But this time, it wasn't the silence of dismissal. It was something heavier. Lauren stepped out onto the tarmac, helmet under one arm, sweat streaking her flight suit. Her boots hit the ground softly. No applause, no words. Just the sound of medics working near Brennan's wreck and the echo of what they had just witnessed. Inside the command tower, no one moved. Whitaker's hands trembled near the console. The general's team watched the drone replay on loop, stunned. They had seen the maneuver, frame by frame, a pilot guiding another bird through descent using only instinct and nerve. No playbook, no protocol. No one could understand how she did it, but everyone knew if she hadn't been in that formation, Brennan would be dead. Lauren said nothing. She didn't look for acknowledgement. She walked back across the hangar floor, visor dangling at her hip, and took her place outside flight ops. Same folding chair, same wall, but something had changed. This time, when she passed the maintenance crew, they didn't look through her. They looked at her, and no one, not even Whitaker, had anything to say. The debrief room was cold, not by temperature, but by silence. A thick, uncomfortable stillness hung over every seat like fog. Screens glowed with paused footage. Coffee cups sat untouched. No one moved. General McKinley stood near the center screen, arms crossed, watching the aerial replay for the fourth time. His expression never changed. He didn't blink, didn't speak. Just watched the exact moment Lauren's jet tucked beneath Brennan's, locking into a position no manual ever taught. Colonel Whitaker stood off to the side, hands behind his back, chin high, but face tight. He hadn't said a word since they entered the room. He knew what was coming. Lauren sat alone at the far end of the table, still in flight gear, visor tucked beside her. She hadn't been asked to speak, but everyone's eyes drifted to her, then away again. "Play that again," McKinley said quietly. The technician restarted the footage, this time from the drone's overhead camera. Two jets in formation, one smoking, one steady. A dance in slow motion, performed at 15,000 feet with seconds to spare. "This wasn't luck," McKinley muttered. "This was practiced." He turned. "Colonel, when was the last time Captain Shaw was assigned a lead flight?" Whitaker hesitated. She hasn't been assigned lead since arriving at Denton, sir. And why is that? I made a judgment call, Whitaker said, carefully, based on available personnel and performance data at the time. McKinley raised an eyebrow. You had a pilot with over 1,000 logged hours, 3 overseas tours, and a history of emergency responses. You kept her grounded. Why she was transferred here late? We didn't have complete evaluations. I followed protocol. Protocol didn't save your pilot, McKinley said flatly. She did. The room went still again. Lauren didn't shift in her seat. She looked straight ahead. Calm, still, unbothered. McKinley looked at her for the first time. Captain, that vector alignment, the descent control. It wasn't textbook. That was gut instinct. That was war memory. Who taught you that? Lauren answered, quiet but steady. My father, sir, Colonel James Shaw. He flew with the 118th Tactical Squadron in Iraq. McKinley nodded slowly. He knew the name. Most people in that room did. A decorated combat pilot, lost during a support mission near Fallujah, posthumously honored with the Distinguished Flying Cross. I remember him, McKinley said. He once landed a damaged F-16 in a sandstorm, saved 2 recon teams. That kind of flying doesn't come from training alone. Lauren didn't respond. She didn't have to. One of the generals leaned forward. Why didn't we know who she was? Because no one asked. That answer hung in the air, even if no one spoke it. McKinley looked at Whitaker. You had all this on file. Whitaker nodded reluctantly. Yes, sir. It was in her transfer record. And yet she sat on standby for weeks while less experienced pilots rotated through lead positions. She didn't challenge the assignments. Whitaker offered weakly. Of course she didn't, McKinley said. She was too busy doing the work. Lauren looked down for the first time, just briefly, then back up. The technician changed screens again, zoomed replay, this time from a fuselage cam. The moment when Lauren's stabilizer touched Brennan's undercarriage, correcting a tilt that would have ended in fire. You could see the heat shimmer between them, the absolute stillness of her hands. This technique, McKinley said, pointing, hasn't been logged in any emergency playbook I've seen. Has it? No, sir, the flight instructor said. It's never been attempted in training. Not like that. Well, it is now. He turned to the whiteboard. Effective immediately. I want this maneuver broken down, simulated and documented, mark it under emergency vector descent, and give it a name pilots will remember. The instructor hesitated. Do you want us to assign a name? Sir, no. It already has one. McKinley looked back at Lauren. Call it the Shaw descent. Whitaker flinched, almost imperceptibly. Someone in the back nodded. Someone else began typing. A memo would be drafted, a protocol added, quietly, without fanfare, but it would be there. Her name. In every cockpit manual from that day forward. McKinley stepped closer to her, not in confrontation, but in recognition. Captain Shaw, your father would have been proud. She nodded. Thank you, sir. He took one final look around the room. File her for full commendation. Retroactive. I want this on record, and I want a full review of why her flight status wasn't active. His tone shifted, now pointed at Whitaker. You'll be writing that report. Personally. Whitaker stiffened. Yet, sir. McKinley turned back to Lauren. One last question. Why didn't you speak up? You could have filed an objection, pushed for lead. I don't need to speak to be ready, sir, she said. The room fell quiet again, not out of discomfort, but out of respect. As McKinley exited, the other generals followed. They didn't say much, but each one looked at Lauren as they passed. Not curiosity, not sympathy, just recognition. Whitaker was the last to leave. He lingered by the door, then slowly walked back to her seat. He looked down not with defiance, not with power, but something closer to regret. "You saved him," he said. "Yes, sir," Lauren replied. "I underestimated you." She said nothing. "I won't make that mistake again." Lauren stood, not taller, not prouder, just steady. She picked up her visor, nodded once, and walked past him. The door closed behind her without a sound. Lauren didn't ask for a medal. She didn't wait for a ceremony or expect her name to be etched in a wall. She showed up the next morning like nothing had happened. There was no speech at Denton Air Base, no salute in her honor, no base-wide memo declaring what she had done. But something began to shift quietly, like wind changing direction. The first change came in the hallways. Officers who used to look through her now looked her in the eye. They nodded when she passed, subtle but unmistakable. In the ready room, the tension softened. Young pilots paused mid-sentence when she entered, not from fear, but from something closer to awareness. They watched the way she adjusted her harness, noticed how she ran her hand across the wing root, feeling for vibration. No one had ever paid attention before. Now, they learned by watching. It wasn't because she demanded it. She hadn't said a word about the flight, not in debriefs, not in passing, not even when Brennan returned from medical leave. But even he looked at her differently now. He didn't talk over her anymore. He didn't boast. He trained harder, stayed longer, and when asked about that day, all he ever said was, "I wouldn't be here without her." The new rotation schedule came out on a Friday. Lauren's name was printed at the top, squadron lead. No fine print, no conditions, just her name. She didn't pause to read it twice, just pressed her thumb against the paper briefly and kept walking. Instructors began requesting her for advanced flight sims, not to test her, but to have others fly beside her. They wanted their best to learn what no manual could teach. At the locker bay, her routine stayed the same. Same locker, same sequence. Gloves, checklist, visor. But tucked behind the door now was something new. A photograph old, black and white, slightly curled at the corners. Her father stood in front of an F-4 Phantom, desert wind pushing at his flight suit, a calm, proud smile in his eyes. She hadn't put it there. Behind the photo, someone had slipped a folded note. The handwriting was careful, like someone who had rewritten it more than once. It read, "We were wrong. You didn't fly like one of the best. You flew like the only one who could." She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just folded the note behind the picture and closed the locker. No one saw her do it. No one needed to. That week, a memo circulated through command channels. It included footage of the Shaw descent, now officially recorded in emergency maneuver logs. Training facilities were ordered to integrate it into advanced modules. They didn't ask Lauren to name it, but it bore her name anyway. At other bases, instructors played the footage in slow motion. They paused it at the moment her stabilizer tapped Brennan's jet. Frame by frame, they studied how she did what she did. Back at Denton, no one talked about the footage, but they all remembered it. It wasn't just what she did, it was how she did it. Steady, focused, no hesitation, no panic. She flew like someone who'd already lived the worst and still chose to stay in the sky. Lauren never posted anything. No interviews, no stories. She didn't tell her family. She didn't tell the younger pilots who asked for tips. Instead, she let them follow. Quietly, on the tarmac, in the hangar, at briefing tables where she still sat with the same calm posture, same quiet eyes. There were no new stripes on her sleeve, no special patch, but when she walked across the hangar floor, the room shifted around her. Tools went silent, jokes paused. Even Whitaker, now quieter, nodded respectfully. She hadn't taken anything from anyone. She had only shown what was always there. And when she flew, she didn't fly for rank or reputation. She flew for the space between breath and instinct where seconds decided everything and silence could carry someone safely home. The day after her next flight, Brennan left something on her bench in the prep room, a folded map, marked with coordinates. She recognized them immediately: Fallujah, her father's final sortie. Nothing was written on it, but that was the point. He knew. And now, so did she. Every time she stepped toward the F-16 visor in hand, sun breaking just past the hangar doors, no one clapped. No one needed to. Because at Denton, they remembered. The pilots, the techs, even the ones who once dismissed her, they all remembered the jet that caught a falling aircraft mid-sky. Not with fanfare, not with noise, but with precision and grace. She didn't need applause. She didn't need her name on a plaque. She just needed the sky. Because when the moment came, she didn't rise to the occasion. She became the reason it didn't fall apart. In our darkest moments, kindness still finds a way, often in the quietest places. Not everyone who helps wants recognition. Some just need to know that today, someone isn't going hungry. And sometimes, that alone is enough to change a life. You may forget the story, but if no one retells it, history stays silent forever. Subscribe to Grateful Stories, where justice is honored, kindness is remembered, and no act of quiet heroism is ever lost.